Okay. All right, it is day 4 this week. We started working on law of cosines yesterday, and we did a couple of problems, and we took a look at, when can you use this law of cosines. And we did 2 problems yesterday where we knew 2 side lengths and the included angle. So today we're going to look at, how do we use the law of cosines when we know all 3 side lengths, but none of the angle measures, okay? All right, so something like this, okay, where notice we know the length of all 3 sides, we just do not know the measure of any of the 3 angles. Okay, so when you're in this situation, it doesn't really matter which angle you start with. Okay, it makes no difference whatsoever. Okay, so I'm going to start with angle X. I'm going to do that guy first. I'm going to find the measure of angle X. Okay, so if I'm applying the law of cosines, let's see, we have to start with the side opposite angle X. So we go 8 squared equals the sum of the other 2 sides squared. Okay, so that'd be 14 squared plus 18 squared minus 2 times these other 2 sides. So 2 times 14 times 18 times the cosine of the angle opposite where I started. So I started with 8 squared, so the cosine of angle X, and that's what I'm trying to find, the measure of angle X. Okay, so we get the calculator going. Okay, we know 8 squared is 64. Okay, now I want to go 14 squared, okay, plus 18 squared. Okay, so 14 squared plus 18 squared, I'm getting 520. Okay, minus, okay, I want to go 2 times 14 times 18. So 2 times 14 times 18, and that gives me 504 times the cosine of angle X. Now I've got to isolate cosine of angle X. So I've got to subtract 520 from both sides. Okay, I got to bring this over and subtract it. Okay, so we go 64 minus 520. And that is negative 456 equals, don't forget about this negative sign here, negative 504 cosine of angle X. Okay, now I'm going to have to divide both sides by negative 504. So I get the cosine of angle X equals negative 456 divided by negative 504. Okay, so if that's the case, that means the measure of angle X is cosine inverse of this ratio. Okay, now the negatives cancel each other off, so you can drop them off if you want. If you want to keep them both, keep them both. It's not going to make any difference. It'll give you the same answer. I'm going to drop them off. So 456 over 504. Okay, and then I just punch that in. Let's see what we get. So let's see, second cosine inverse, 456 divided by 504. And I am getting 25.21 pesos. Okay, so this guy right here, 25.21 degrees. Okay, I'm going to go after angle Y next. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to do the measure of angle Y. Okay, so let's see. If I'm doing that, I start at the side opposite, so I start with the 14 squared equals the sum of the squares of the other 2 sides, so that would be 18 squared plus 8 squared minus 2 times these other 2 sides, so 2 times 18 times 8 times the cosine. Well, I started with 14, so I have to end up with cosine of the angle opposite to 14, which would be cosine of angle Y, and that's what I'm looking for. Okay, so let's see. Let's get our calculator going. 14 squared is 196. Okay, I've got to go 18 squared plus 8 squared, 18 squared plus 8 squared, and I'm getting 388. Now I got to multiply these guys together here. So 2 times 18 times 8, 288. cosine of angle y. Okay, let's see. So I've got to subtract the 388 from both sides. Okay, so I go 196 minus 388, and that gives me a negative 192. Don't forget this negative sign. Negative 288. I'm sorry, that's an 8. I'm running out of lead. Cosine of angle y. Okay, so I'm going to have to divide both sides by negative 288. And don't forget about those negative signs. Okay, so we're going to get the cosine of angle y is negative 192 divided by negative 288. So if that's the case, we know the measure of angle y has to be cosine inverse of this ratio. Okay, and again, you can hold on to both negative signs if you want, or you can say, well, negative divided by negative is a positive, so I'll just drop it off. I'm going to drop them. Okay, so I'd get cosine inverse of 192 over 288, and then we punch that into our calculator. Second, cosine inverse 192 divided by 288, and hit enter, and we are getting 48.19 pesos when it's rounded off. So that guy's right there. Okay, 48.19 pesos. Okay, now, just like yesterday, if you say, okay, well, I know angle X and I know angle Y, so let me use the triangle sum theorem to find angle Z, okay, you'll get an answer. Now, the problem is if you made a mistake here or made a mistake there or both, then you're going to have a mistake on angle Z and you're not going to know it. So I'm going to do the math, okay, and we're going to do the measure of angle Z. Okay, so let's see. Measure of angle Z. Okay, so I have to start with the side opposite, so 18 squared equals the sum of the squares of the other two sides, the 14 and the 8. So 14 squared plus 8 squared minus 2 times these other two sides. So 2 times 14 times 8 times the cosine of angle Z, because angle Z is opposite where I started. Okay, and that's what I want. I want the cosine of angle Z so I can find angle Z. Okay, so again, we get the calculator going. 18 squared is 324. Okay, and let's see, we do this right there at 14 squared plus 8 squared, and you get 260 minus, multiply these guys together, 2 times 14, 2 times 14 times 8, okay, I'm getting 224, cosine of Z. Okay, so again, I've got to isolate cosine of Z, so I got to get this guy out of there, so we subtract 260 from both sides. So 324 minus 260, and that gives me a positive 64. Don't forget the negative sign. Negative 224 cosine of Z. So now I have to divide both sides by negative 224. So I get the cosine of Z is 64 divided by negative 224. Now notice you don't have two negatives, so they don't cancel each other out. So you have to hold on to that negative. So if this is the case, I get the measure of angle Z is cosine inverse of 64 divided by negative 224. And then we punch that into our calculator. Okay, so let's see, second cosine inverse, 64 divided by negative 224. And we get 106.60 pesos. Okay, and so I can check, okay? You check the triangle sum theorem, okay? And make sure these add up to something very, very close to 180 degrees. So if we go 25.21 pesos plus 48.19 pesos plus 106.60 pesos, and we add those together and see what happens. So 25.21, okay, plus 48.19 plus 106.60, and that comes out to exactly 180 degrees on the nose, so we should feel pretty good about it. Okay, but once again, if you did not bother to go through this math to find the measure of angle Z, and you had made a mistake here finding the measure of angle X, or a mistake finding the measure of angle Y, you would automatically have a mistake here and you wouldn't know it. So that's why I take the time to go through the math. Okay, let's try one more of these guys. Okay, wanted to do some with decimals in it. Okay, now remember, we're not going to round anything off until the very end. Okay, very end. Okay, so I can start anywhere I want. So I'm going to start with the measure of angle A. Okay, measure of angle A. I'm going to find that guy first. Okay, so we go 17.8 squared equals the sum of the squares of the other two sides. So that'd be 10.2 squared plus 15 squared minus 2 times these two guys. 10.2 times 15 times the cosine of angle A. Okay, so remember, don't round anything off until the very end. So 17.8 squared is 316.84. Okay, so I go 10.2 squared plus 15 squared, and that gives me 329.04 minus, multiply these guys together, 2 times 10.2 times 15, and I'm getting 306 on the nose, cosine of angle A. Let me check that. I wasn't expecting to get something without decimal, so let me check that. 2 times 10.2 times 15. Yes, okay, we're good. Okay, so I've got to isolate this guy, so I got to start by subtracting 329.04 from both sides. So we 316.84 minus 329.04, I'm sorry, that's a 4, not a 7, equals, I'm getting negative 12.2 equals, don't forget the negative sign here, negative 306 cosine of angle A. So here I'd have to divide both sides by negative 306. So I get the cosine of angle A equals negative 12.2 divided by negative 306. And again, notice they're both negative, so you could drop the negative signs, they cancel each other out. So we get the measure of angle A equals cosine inverse of 12.2 divided by 306. Okay, so we punch that in. Second cosine inverse, 12.2 divided by 306. And I'm getting 87.72 pesos. Okay, so this guy right here is 87.72 pesos. So notice we're kind of close to a right triangle, but certainly we don't have a right triangle. Okay, let's see. I'm going to go after the measure of angle B next. Okay, measure of angle B. This will be my second one. Okay, so let's see. If I'm going after B, I have to start with the 15 squared. So 15 squared equals the sum of the squares of the other two. 10.2 squared plus 17.8 squared minus 2 times these two guys. 10.2 times 17.8 times the cosine of angle B. Okay, so let's see, let's get our calculator going. 15 squared is 225. 225 equals, I gotta do these guys. 10.2 squared plus 17.8 squared. Don't round anything off. I got something that's bothering me here. 10.2 squared plus 17.8 squared. Okay, I'm getting 420.88, okay, minus, we have 2 times 10.2 times 17.8, and I'm getting 363.12 times the cosine of angle B. Okay, so let's see, we've got to bring this guy over and subtract. Okay, so I know I'm going to get something that's negative, so I go 225 minus 420.88, and I get a negative 195.88 equals, don't forget about that negative sign, negative 363.12 times the cosine of angle B. So I'd have to divide both sides by this negative 363.12. So I get the cosine of angle B equals negative 195.88 divided by negative 363.12. Okay, so that means the measure of angle B would be cosine inverse of this guy. And obviously, both the numerator and denominator are both negative, so they cancel each other out, so I'll just drop them. So the measure of angle B is cosine inverse of 195.88 divided by 363.12. And then we just punch that into our calculator. So let's see, second cosine inverse, 195.88, right, divided by 363.12. And I am getting 57.35 pesos. Okay, so this guy right here, 57.35. Okay, so again, if you go ahead and apply the triangle sum theorem right now to find angle Z, and if you have a mistake on either of these two or both of them, you're going to get a mistake on angle C and you're not even going to know it. So I'm going to do the math. Okay, so let's see. My third guy. Okay, I got to do the measure of angle C. Okay, so we have to start with 10.2. So it'd be 10.2 squared equals the sum of the squares of the other two sides. Okay, so 15 squared plus 17.8 squared minus 2 times these two guys. 2 times 15 times 17.8 times the cosine of angle C. Okay, so now we just get the calculator going. So let's see, 10.2 squared. I'm getting 104.04 equals. All right, now I got to do these guys right here. So 15 squared plus 17.8 squared. Okay, I'm getting 541.84 minus, now I got to do these guys. 2 times 15 times 17.8, and I'm getting 534 on the nose, and I'm going to check that to make sure. Okay, so let's see. Try it. I just want to make sure. 17.8. No, that doesn't make any difference. 30 times 17.8. Yes, 534. Cosine of angle C. Okay, so let's see. We got to subtract this from both sides, so that's going to give me a negative. Okay, so I got 104.04 minus 541.84. I'm getting negative 437.8 equals, don't forget the negative sign, negative 534 cosine of C. Okay, so now I have to divide both sides by negative 534. So I get the cosine of angle C equals negative 437.8 divided by negative 534. Okay, so that means the measure of angle C is cosine inverse of this ratio. And again, we have double negatives, so they cancel each other off, so you can drop them. 437.8 divided by 534. Okay, and we punch that into our calculator. Second cosine inverse, 437.8 divided by 534. And I am getting 34.93 pesos. Okay, so 34.93 pesos. Okay. So I certainly want to check this to make sure it satisfies the triangle sum theorem. So these three angles have to add up to something very, very close to 180. So let's see, we're going to check that. So we go 87.72 pesos plus 57.35 pesos plus 34.93. And we see what we got. Let's make sure I got 87.72, 57.35, 34.93. Let's add them together and see what happens. 87.72 plus 57.35 plus 34.93. And lo and behold, I get 180 pesos on the nose. Okay, so we're in good shape. Okay, all right, so I like these, the SSS, I like them. They seem to be the easiest situation to work with law of cosines, at least I think so. Okay, that will wrap up the instructional videos for this week. I'm sure that I will find some funny video to post sometime later today or tomorrow. So you guys stay safe out there, and I miss you a whole bunch.